What's up, everyone, and welcome to an episode of the Grindline Podcast. You're listening to episode 183. I am here tonight with Ryan and Tyler, but also with, I guess I'm going to call you writer, producer, and Red Wings historian, Keith Gave. How you doing tonight, Keith?
I'm well, thanks. And a beat writer for the Detroit Free Press for 15 years, covering the Red Wings.
Yeah, Keith, you've been all over the place. Huh. I mean, I'm looking at your Wikipedia article. I'm like, what has Keith done this whole time? And what
Everything.
I'm like, and then I read and I'm like, wait, Keith, how do you go from NSA agent to hockey beat writer for the Detroit Free Press?
It's a great question, really. It starts with learning Russian in the first place, guys. And the only reason I wound up in Russian language school in Monterey, California, at the Defense Language Institute in 1971 was because I got a letter from Richard Nixon in December of 1970 saying, "Greetings, I was drafted."
Oh.
I didn't want to go to Vietnam. Instead of being drafted for 2 years, I enlisted for 4 years on the condition they send me to Russian language school. I went to Monterey, California, while everybody else was going to Southeast Asia to become a bullet stopper, and I didn't want to do that.
Yeah, that's probably a great decision.
It was a serendipitous. I made it through the program. I went to a spy school and intelligence school in Texas for about 6 months. Then I wound up in West Berlin when the wall was still there, working at a state-of-the-art spy station run by the NSA, basically keeping track of the bad guys on the other side of the wall.
I didn't know you could tell them. I didn't know you could say, hey, I don't want to go to war, so let me do something else.
It was either that or go to Canada, and Canada wouldn't have me. So
I feel like
there were too many draft dodgers going to Canada.
Yeah, I feel like your Army intel stories are a lot better than mine. I was Army intel, all source intelligence for just over 13 years.
Real for 13 years. Where were you stationed?
I was guard out of Ohio, but I had a couple deployments to Kuwait, Iraq, and then also Afghanistan.
So you're MI, not I was ASA. You're MI, right?
Yep, yeah. Straight MI.
Got it. Well, good for you. 13 years. Why just 13?
Because my back said it was time to stop.
So you a medical discharge?
Yep.
Good. Well, good for you. Well, thanks for your service, man.
Yeah, appreciate
Welcome
it.
home.
Oh, thank you.
So how do you go from that to beat writing, especially hockey beat writing?
Yeah, I got out of the Army in 1977 with my honorable discharge, and about 2 weeks before that, I got my bachelor's degree from Kansas State University. My last duty station was Fort Riley, Kansas, and I went to school my last year and a half at Kansas State University. Compiled enough credit hours for them to kindly give me a degree, and I went immediately to Michigan State University in the graduate program in Russian. I thought I was going to, maybe get a master's degree and a PhD, whatever degrees I needed to teach the language one day. And I figured out pretty quickly that the jobs, that the very few jobs for Russian instructors at the university level go to Russians who emigrate to this country, who know the language by heart, right? Not enough Americans study foreign languages, and especially they don't study Russian because it's too hard. And so I realized pretty quickly that no matter how many degrees I got, I was never going to go to get a job teaching Russian. So I jumped to the program in journalism, thinking maybe I could be a foreign correspondent one day, use my language skills that way. So I took 3 or 4, 5, maybe. I think I might have completed 5 journalism classes. I got a part-time job at the Lansing State Journal on the sports desk, on the prep desk, writing Friday night football scores. You know, those little one-paragraph stories that used to wind up in Saturday morning's newspaper.
Yeah, here's what happened.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I did that for a few months, and actually, I walked into the newsroom in August of '78. In the spring of '79, the city editor offered me a job as a city desk reporter, a news reporter on the city side. And basically they saw enough promise in me, and I was a little older. I'd spent 6.5 years in the Army. So I was a little older and a little bit more mature. And they saw enough in me that they might be able to groom me to become a decent reporter. So I took the job, and I spent about 2.5 years at the Lansing State Journal. Then I went to the AP Chicago, the bureau there, where I wrote news, sports, business, everything. spent about 2 years in Chicago, and the Associated Press was going to send me to Moscow. It worked exactly the way I thought it was supposed to work, the way I'd planned it, except I accepted the job to go to Moscow. And then a couple of days later, I told my bosses I couldn't take that job now. My father was pretty sick with cancer at the time. And my mom said, you have to go to Europe, back to Europe now. You know, your dad's pretty sick. And I said, you know what, Mom, I don't have to. I resigned from the AP. I came home to Detroit. I got summer of 1984, talked to the folks at the Free Press. They said, sure, we'd like to have you. Why don't you help us cover this baseball team here in Detroit this summer? They're off to a pretty good start. And so I helped. I was like the fifth man in all summer long, covering a World Series champion baseball team. That's how I got my start at the Free Press. And then when that was over, they put me back on the city desk. I spent a year as a news reporter at the Freep. And it was the summer of 85 when all kinds of stuff were happening with the Detroit Red Wings, where the two jobs came available on the Free Press sports desk at that time. The NBA job covering the Pistons, the NHL job covering the Red Wings. And I threw my name in a hat with, I'm sure, hundreds of other people, right? And the sports editor, called me in. We had a conversation. He said, if you had your choice between Pistons or Red Wings, which would you take? And I said, I think I'd take the Red Wings. He said, why? They're terrible. And they were terrible.
Yeah.
And I said, because they always find a way to make news. And I'm a news guy. I can get the Red Wings on page one of the newspaper, probably more than any other team we have in Detroit. Anyways, he hired me to cover the Red Wings in it was about Labor Day weekend in 1985. And as you remember, 85, 86, that was my first year covering the Red Wings. Worst season in the history of their franchise.
We had a lot to write about.
No question about it. Well, that was the summer that Peter Klima defected from Czechoslovakia. They signed 5 college free agents, among them Adam Oates, the only one that could play, and they got accused of tampering by 3 NHL clubs for signing 3 NHL players from other teams. 9 new guys. Listen, Sports Illustrated came to camp in Port Huron at McMorran Auditorium, where the Red Wings have training camp. Sports Illustrated came to a big spread about the Detroit Red Wings spending all this money. The pizza guy in Detroit spent all this dough to make a bad pun. The Sports Illustrated did that. Anyways, SI predicted the Wings are going to win the Stanley Cup. They finished with 40 points, 17, 57, and 6. They fired 2 coaches. That was my indoctrination to, and by the way, they were bad enough that they were on page 1 frequently that season because firing coaches and everything else.
I mean, but you could only go up from there. I mean, exactly. Right? You start out on the easiest place to start is the bottom floor.
Well, listen, then they hired a funny little French guy, coach, Jacques Demers. And they went to the Final Four the next 2 years. They went to, they played in an awful Norris division. They won their division 2 years in a row. They had the opportunity to play Wayne Gretzky's Edmonton Oilers in the semifinals the next, those 2 years in a row. But the town went bonkers. The team was so bad for so long. Now they're in the Stanley Cup semifinals. Are you kidding me? It was kind of fun to cover the team then, I'll tell you that.
I say, when was it around that time frame that the cars were stopped? They stopped giving away the cars. Yeah, was it right before Jacques Demers got there?
It was just before my first year, actually. It was right after Ilitch bought the team. When he spent literally about $2 to $3 million of his own money of cash. The rest was inherited debt. The team's worth what? How much now? $1 billion, whatever it is.
Or more, yeah.
But he bought the team and they had a season ticket base of about 2,500. He said, we got to start selling tickets. And he started, I think it would be the 84, 85 season, maybe the 83, 84 season, right? He gave a brand new American made car away at every game. So, I mean, what's your chances of winning the lottery is like you get struck by lightning.
I just went by this. 1 in 330 million.
Yeah, the chances of winning a car, 1 in 15,000 if you're in a crowded Joe Louis Arena, pretty
Best
darn good.
Odds. Yeah, best odds.
That's one thing I'll never forget, because my dad always told me about how back in the day, Dead Wings era, they would give cars away to try to get people coming to games.
And it worked.
That's
It
fantastic.
Worked. Sure, in a few years. I mean, the first year I covered it, they were pretty bad, obviously, but the next couple of years after the second time that they went to the Stanley Cup semifinals, they had a season ticket base of about 16,500. They had to cut off so they could have enough for walk-up sales, right?
Yeah.
And they had a waiting list of years to get to be able to buy season tickets. Once upon a time, that's how crazy, how excited fans were that they finally got a decent hockey team to follow.
So as everyone, and then it gets interesting from there, and everyone knows. So 1989. You're real good friends with Jim Lights, and Jim Lights asks you to go talk to Sergei Fedorov and Vladdy.
Right.
And I mean, that's really where it all begins to put together that dream team that goes on the crazy runs and just accomplishes so much stuff. And in that time, I mean, how scared were you at that time to go back and forth doing those kind of secret conversations?
Yeah, I guess I wasn't scared. If he were to ask me to go to Moscow and do that, I would have been scared, especially with my military background. I would have wound up in a gulag, I'm sure. What frightened me the most was not getting the job done, not making contact, not passing along the messages. That's the part that I worried about. I mean, listen, here's the gig was this, hop in an airplane, write a couple of letters, one to Sergei and one to Vladdy in Russian so they could understand them. I got off the airplane at 4:00 in the afternoon. I know there's a hockey game in about 3 hours somewhere in the city of Helsinki, but I don't know where it is. I'm asking around in the airport trying to figure out where there might be a hockey game. A guy at the currency exchange window suggested I try, this. He said, I heard one of our club teams is playing the Soviet national team in a friendly, a scrimmage game. And so I said, is there a hotel nearby? And he said, yeah, there's a Radisson hotel right across the park. So I hopped in a cab, went to the Radisson, got a room, took a quick shower, walked across the park, and I got to the arena just as the Russians were getting off the bus. Now I used my NHL press credential to get in the building. I walk in the coffee shop there, and it's full of NHL people. All of whom had drafted Russians somewhere along the line, were trying to make contact with them, right? I was the one guy in the room who could actually make contact under the auspices of being the reporter, right? Asking for an interview. Now I had to find one of the sponsors, promoters who could get me access, down into the dressing room and maybe, try and have a chance to talk to these guys. It was this late in the second period where I found somebody. He says, oh yeah. He said, I think I can help you. But he said, you want to talk to these guys? And I said, I'd like to at least meet them and so on. He said, the Russians won't let you in the dressing room. I said, no, I didn't think so. He said, but maybe I can go in and I can ask. He said, but you have to realize they don't cooperate very well with us. And there's a good chance that they're going to say, no, you can't talk to them. I said, that's okay. As long as we try, I'd appreciate that. So he, took me down after the game. I'm, standing outside across the hall from the dressing room. I got some KGB guy down about 10 feet away from me along the wall, staring at me, trying to figure out, who the hell I was, what I was doing. And they brought Sergei and Vladdy out, draped in white towels around their waist, dripping wet. And, I introduced myself and made a really quick work of giving them a little pins to put on their lapel and business cards and explaining. I showed neither one of them had knew that they had been drafted by an NHL team. Now they were drafted about 6 weeks before that. This is way before the internet. Remember?
Yeah, internet, not real good TV over in Russia.
And the Russians didn't exactly share that information with their players either, right? So I showed Sergei. I said, there you are, Sergei, in the fourth round, 74th overall, right there, Sergei Fedorov. There you are. And I said, and Vladdy, here you are right down here in the 11th round, I think 212th, whatever it was overall. Sergei looked like the guy who would really be hard to play cards against. because he showed no emotion at all. Vladdy was like the little kid who got the bike for Christmas, right? Just hopping all over the place, really excited. And I fell in love with Vladdy right away, just by his reaction. And then I gave him like a little media guide that I tucked my message into that I'd written to those guys. And it was, I realized at that moment that I didn't really hide the message very well. It was kind of obvious what was going on. Anyways, Sergey grabbed his copy and he looked down and he's thumbing through the pages and he sees the message that I had put in there, closed the book, put it behind his back. And that's when I realized I had to get the hell out of there pretty quick. And I kind of shook their hands and said, thank you very much. It was great talking with you. We won't do a formal interview now. You guys are cold. They had goosebumps all over their body. There's a sheet of ice right behind us. And so it was, I said goodbye, said my thank yous, and I left the building. And then I walked around the city of Helsinki for about 3 hours, looking over my shoulder, making sure I wasn't being followed before I went back to my room. But it was a mission accomplished kind of, what is it, mission impossible?
You were Tom Cruise in this story. That's
well, it was to get all that done. In 3 hours beforehand, I didn't even know where I could find a hockey game. I was pretty lucky, but I was mostly scared, to answer your question again, that I wouldn't get, I'd spend, this time and this money and whatever, and not be able to pass along the message. I got the message passed, and, it was, and I was on thin ice ethically. I was working for the Detroit Free Press at the time. I was doing a favor for the team that I covered. Kind of a no-no, right?
Yeah.
Not supposed to do this stuff. But I justified it this way. Basically, I said, Jim, Lights, I'll do this for you on one condition, that if and when these guys come over here, I want to be your first phone call. I want the news first for my readers at the Free Press. And he said, done, deal. So it was in mid-August that I made contact with those guys in Helsinki. The following July, I'm sitting at my home. I was living in Dearborn then. And my phone rang. It was about dinner time. I picked it up. I said, Keith? And I said, yeah. I said, this is Jim Lights. I said, oh, hi, Jim. How you doing? He said, great. He said, I'm on Mr. Ilitch's airplane flying back from Portland, Oregon. Guess who's sitting next to me? I said, who would that be? And he said, Sergey Fedorov. I said, oh, great. I shoved my plate away. I grabbed my notebook. I started taking notes, and doing about a 10-minute interview. And then I hung up the phone. I looked at my watch. And I called not my sports editor at the Free Press. I called the city desk, and they got a harried city here. We're not very far from first edition deadline at that time. I said, "This Keith Gave." He said, "Yeah, what do you want?" And I said, "I got it." I said, "What do you got going on page 1 tomorrow?" He said, "Why do you care?" I said, "Because whatever you got, I'm going to blow it out of the water." He said, "What is it?" I said, there's a Soviet defector on his way from the Goodwill Games in Pacific Northwest on his way to Detroit to play hockey for the Detroit Red Wings. His name is Sergey Fedorov. Long pause. Then I hear, you got 35 minutes. Hung up the phone. And so I got my laptop out and I typed my ass off for 35 minutes. I hit the button. I sent my story to the Free Press the next morning about 6:15. In the good old days, remember the good old days when the newspaper landed on your doorstep 7 days a week?
Yeah, a kid with a bike drive by and throw it.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. Anyway, my newspaper landed on my porch. I went out and looked at it, and there it was, page 1, above the fold, Soviet defector on his way to Detroit to play for the Red Wings, and that's how the Russian Five got started.
And you got to have that framed somewhere, right? That front page newspaper article.
You know what? I don't.
Oh.
I don't. I never really fell in love with my own work to save that kind of stuff. I kind of wish I had.
I'll have to check my basement. I have a whole box of Red Wings newspapers.
You got
downstairs.
it. I'll pay you for it.
I'll take a look. I know I have I have one of the printing plates of Yzerman holding up the Stanley Cup.
Oh,
yeah, so, I've got that from my father-in-law. Gave me one of those.
Yeah,
I have one of those as well.
Yeah,
good.
But that all led, it all goes from there. It's just tons of stories, enough where you did write the Russian Five, a story of espionage, defection, bribery, and courage as a book, and then produced and wrote on the film, which was an awesome, the film was just amazing. And now, so there's that book. For those who aren't watching on YouTube, Ryan's holding it up. But now you have Vlad the Impaler, which is your new book. Tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, yeah, and thanks for asking me about that. About a year ago right now, my former boss at the Free Press, sports editor Gene Myers, he called me and said, "Hey, we're putting together a book commemorating the 25th anniversary of this past season, right? The 97 Stanley Cup championship season. And we're wondering if you would contribute some things. We'd like you to have a Russian 5 presence and maybe some other things as well." And I said, sure, but I said, I don't want to just copy and paste a chapter out of the Russian 5 book into this book. I'd like to kind of reshape it, update it, whatever I could, to make it something, at least give readers a little bit of something different to read that they hadn't already read in the book. And so I got my 2 bins of research out and I started looking through all this material that I had, all these interviews that I had stacked up, and I'm realizing how much good stuff I had left over that I wasn't able to get into the Russian 5 book, that we certainly weren't able to get in the film. And also, guys, there was this going on. It was 1st of July last year that the insurance laws in Michigan changed.
Yeah.
And people with catastrophic injuries like Vladimir Konstantinov and about 18 to 20,000 other people were in jeopardy of losing their coverage, to such a point that Vladdy's daughter, Anastasia, created a GoFundMe page, this Vladimir Konstantinov Special Needs Trust, to raise a couple of bucks to ensure that he kept, the kind of, got everything that he needed, got the care that he needed, and so on. And that's still in danger, by the way. There's a chance that he could lose this coverage. The insurance companies now are paying 55 cents on a dollar. A lot of people who are in that home health care business used to making 30, 35 bucks an hour, are now making 15 or 18 bucks an hour.
Yeah.
They can make more money at McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're leaving the business, and these small companies designed to help people with catastrophic injury who needs that help they're losing money, and there's a chance that Vladdy's his attorney, Jim Belanca, good man. He was in the Unrivaled documentary for a few minutes, but there's he said there's a legitimate concern that if Vladdy does wind up in an institution, like a nursing home type facility,
assisted living,
that he may not survive. He may not survive. He's still a big, strong guy.
Yeah.
I shook his hand recently. It's still as strong as it was the night that they won the Stanley Cup in '97. And he has a little bit of a temper. He's a little bit Vladdy, right? And when he doesn't get his way, he can act out a little bit. The people around him who take care of him do take care of him. They know how to take care of him. What if he winds up in assisted living where they don't know him? He doesn't know them. What do they do in a situation like that? They strap you down or they dope you up, right? Yep. And they worried that if that happens, that he'd have a hard time surviving. Well, I'm hoping with the sale of this book, raising awareness. I'm dedicating a big chunk of the proceeds from the royalties to his trust fund that his daughter set up, and just basically raise awareness so that other people might as well. There's a lot of good stuff that was, like I said, wasn't in the Russian 5 book. One of the very best things, where I know you want to get to the film Unrivaled in a second. Remember what they interviewed the referee in that Paul Dvorsky.
Yeah.
And they give Dvorsky just a couple of snippets of line. It looked like he was very, very careful about what he said. Well, when I spoke to Paul Dvorsky, it was on a Sunday evening. He might have had a couple of pops when he returned my phone call. But there's a chapter in here where he gets very, very honest, very, very blunt about why he didn't kick Darren McCarty out of that game, why McCarty was still in the game to score the overtime game winner. The the candidness with which he spoke and the bluntness with which he spoke was refreshing. And I know I'm the only reporter he's ever talked to and told that whole story that way. And that's in the Vlad the Impaler book.
So that's probably something DMAC doesn't even know unless he's read it yet. So we'll have to let DMAC know he needs to go read it so that he can figure out why he wasn't booted.
And Darren is actually the kicker to that story, by the way. It's the listen, I'm proud of the whole book, but I'm really proud of that chapter. The name of the chapter is "Paybacks Are a Bitch."
Yeah, we love Darren. Darren, he comes on the show quite frequently.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
So
I haven't gotten to that point in the book yet, so now I'm even more excited. I bought this end of the week when I found out what we were doing. Started getting into it because I know you sent Greg some copies. I know he's going to touch on that probably here in a little
at the end of the show. We'll talk about the giveaways.
It only felt appropriate to buy it to do my little piece of it. So
good. Listen, I was there the day that the Wings drafted Darren McCarty in the second round for the Belleville Bulls, right? And I just remember him being. I'll talk about blunt, candid. He basically said, I know I was drafted in the second round, but I'm going to be there in Detroit. You can count on me. I'm going to be there and I'm going to make a difference on that team. This was like an 18, 19-year-old kid, right? Who's got drafted. And he's just I turned to the PR guy, Bill Jameson at the time. I said, Bill, if this guy doesn't make it on the ice, I'd put him in your PR office right now. The guy can talk, right? And by the way, Darren McCarty does a little bit of radio every now and then, right?
Yeah, every day.
Darren McCarty got his start in radio on my show. I started a hockey show called Ice Time at WDFN, the very first sports talk show in Detroit, AM 1130. Uh-huh. It started in August of 74. In August of 94. In September of 94, I started a 2-hour show on Monday nights called Ice Time. And then the players were locked out.
Yeah.
The owners locked them out. That was the first work stoppage, right?
Yep.
So I'm doing a hockey show in Detroit with no hockey.
But the players got a lot of free time then.
they did. And what they did when at one point the Russians, it was Fetisov and Igor Larionov. They weren't even in Detroit yet. They were playing for other teams, but they got together and they got a team of Russian NHL stars. They took them back to Russia to play a series of games during the lockout in the fall of 1994. And the big story was Sergei Fedorov and Alexander Mogilny were going back with them, the two guys who defected. And Mogilny not only defected, but he went AWOL from the Army. He was still in the service. And he could have been shot as a spy or as a deserter,
a traitor.
And anyways, they took these guys back, and I went over there. I went over there with them. I spent 3 weeks over there then, and while I was gone, I had to get somebody to babysit my radio show on Monday nights. I think I missed two. Two shows. Sean Burr did one show. The two best talkers in the room.
Yeah.
Sean Burr did one show. Darren McCarty did my other show. In the fall of 1994, that was his baptism in radio.
Yeah. So in other words, what you're saying is we need to get Darren to reincarnate Ice Time with Woodward Sports.
Yeah. Now he's on Big D Energy Monday through Friday from 11 to 1 on YouTube with Woodward Sports Network. But on Vladdy's Care, we also have a change.org petition online. If you go to change.org, if you just Google change.org and then Konstantinov, it's called Pass House Bill 4486 in support of Vladimir Konstantinov and others. Basically, there is a bill already out that, if passed, would basically reverse the decision to cut the care. There's a whole write-up on it that I put out there on change.org, so you can check that out. And then if you go to redbubble.com and search the Grind Line, we have a t-shirt out, and then 100% of the revenue from that t-shirt, it's basically an outline of Vladdy on the top, and it says "Beat Them," and it's really cool.
I saw it. It looks great, man. It looks great.
I saw it printed, and it looks even better. I was worried about the design on the computer, and I saw it on a shirt, and it looks awesome. But 100% of the proceeds from that design will also go to Vladdy.
There's been a lot of sold. So it was exciting to see how quickly and how passionate people were to get behind that one. That was awesome.
But I want to get your thoughts, like you said, on Unrivaled. I thought the documentary was phenomenal. And then just to see Vladdy, exactly. Just to see him at the end actually sit down. And I cannot recall another interview with him before this.
Right.
And just to sit down and ask him questions and him answer and to go through the care that he needs and everything. And just to show he's still got that kind of Vladdy personality to him.
Right.
Like he cheats at Uno. It was a funny thing, but it was also very, like Ryan said, it's a super touching kind of just tribute to him in an update on his situation. But that had to have been incredibly hard for them to do. And two, I think it just shows that, I mean, for a guy they thought was not going to live, to show how far he's come since then to where he is now.
No question. It would have killed most of us.
Yeah.
You know, there were very few people could have survived that. Vladdy's one of them. Absolutely. I agree. And I'll tell you what, I as proud as I am of the Russian 5 documentary, and I thought we did a pretty good job with that. We tried like hell to get his attorney, Jim Belanca, and his wife to allow us to interview Vladdy like that. But we were a startup, independent documentary.
You weren't ESPN
company, and then versus ESPN, right? I mean, I can understand why they agreed to do it with ESPN and why they didn't do it with us. We could have done the same thing. We should have been able to do the same thing. I'm glad that ESPN did it. Did I cry? Well, of course. You know, I mean, it felt through it. And listen, I get tears in my eyes every time I see Vladdy. Every time I see him, still, you know, he'll look at me, Keith, you know, hey, Keith, you know, and he'll shake my hand and we'll speak a few words in Russian and in English and so on. And, you know, I always walk away wiping tears. And I cry. I've probably seen the Russian 5 documentary 60 or 70 times. I cry every time. And the same with Unrivaled. You know, that was just extremely touching. It was great that they were able to get him to, you know, ask him questions, and they read the questions registered with him, and he gave, you know, he grunted, you know, some 1 or 2 word answers, but it was perfect, wasn't it?
Yeah, he answered the questions in like the best way possible. I mean, that would have probably been the Vladdy way of answering questions anyways. I mean, you saw him when they brought him on stage during the Stanley Cup celebration. Sure. And he gave like a 1-sentence answer. I mean, it would have been the same thing anyway.
And the crowd went wild. And listen, it was no less than Steve Yzerman himself.
Yeah,
I think he said it during in the documentary, but he said, "This is Yzerman." You know, along with Gordie Howe, the greatest, most popular Red Wing in history, right? And he said, Vladdy was on his way to becoming the most popular player on our team.
Oh yeah.
Steve Yzerman said that. You know, that's where Vladdy was. That's the status he had on June 13th, 1997, when he was sat in the back of that limo with that weed smoking limo jockey who fell asleep at the wheel and crashed into a tree on Woodward Avenue. But you know, Vladdy was a special guy. I mean, I interviewed him countless times, and you're right. To get more than a word or 2 or 3 from him was listen. He was a Norris Trophy candidate that year. You know, we said, Vladdy, you know, you're one of the top 3 the defensemen in the league, and he said, oh, Brian Leach, he's going to win it. You know, he should win it, and he was right. He did. But Vladdy would have won some Norris trophies. Nick Lidstrom probably wouldn't have won 7 Norris trophies. And they probably would have split votes, and other guys would have won them some years. But that's how good a defenseman Vladimir Konstantinov was.
I think that's the hardest part, is thinking about the what if there.
Yeah.
Especially as they were truly hitting the peak.
Yeah.
Going in 96, 97. Yeah. Broke the curse. Then they just go back to back. I mean, obviously, they still fought it out with Colorado for several more years, going through 02, 03.
Yep.
But you wonder if there's maybe even 1 more or 2 more added into that entire mix with him back there, with him and Lidstrom just dominating.
Or 3 more. I agree completely. And, you know, it's not just Vladimir, but Yuri Fisher. They lost Yuri Fisher early. Imagine Vladdy and Yuri Fisher as a defense pair for 4 or 5 years together. I mean, it's frightening. And here's the other thing. Listen, they had to try and replace Vladimir Konstantinov. Well, they wound up bringing Chelios in from Chicago. Yep. What did they give up for Chelios? A couple of first-round draft picks and another young defenseman, Anders Eriksson. It wasn't going to be a first-round defenseman like they thought he was, but they gave up 2 number 1 picks.
Yeah,
if they would have had those number 1 picks, they didn't have to trade for Chelios if it had kept a healthy Vladimir Konstantinov. Who knows how they could have continued to build and get even better. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs involved for sure, but absolutely, I think they could have won at least 1 or 2 more Stanley Cups.
What's up? It's Greg here from the Grindline podcast with a message from Manscaped. Growing out your playoff beard, let that thing loose up top, but our friends at Manscaped are here to help you avoid a jumbo Joe downstairs. The global leaders in below the waist grooming want to save your hockey pucks from a slap shot in crunch time this playoff season. 4 million men worldwide trust Manscaped to prepare them for the Stanley Cup. Join them and go to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code GRINDLINE. Shaving your balls starts with a perfect package for your package, the Performance Package 4.0 from Manscaped. The Lawnmower 4.0 is waterproof and has a 400K LED spotlight when you need a more precise shave. The Weed Whacker nose and ear hair trimmer is also included in this package, which is also waterproof, uses skin-safe technology, so you can keep the unnecessary roughness on the ice where it belongs. There is no more pinching. There is no more pulling. There's no more crying because you're ripping out your nose hairs. Shaves them clean off with no issues at all whatsoever. The Crop Preserver is an anti-chafing ball deodorant to keep your balls sticking to your legs from end to end. No one will be chirping you anymore. The Crop Reviver is a spray-on toner for your balls. It's made with soothing aloe and witch hazel extracts that will give your balls a boost. Manscaped even threw in their Shed travel bag. Amazing bag, super soft, has just enough room for all the tools plus some extras. It's not too big. My problem is generally that the bags are too small and cannot fit everything, so I end up throwing extra stuff in a backpack. This bag is just the right size. The boys will be buzzing this Stanley Cup lineup from Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping with the code GRINDLINE at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping with the promo code GRINDLINE at manscaped.com. Don't be a goon fighting your bush with the wrong trimmer. Choose the right tools for the job this playoff season with Manscaped. Yeah, and that kind of goes back to the whole now Russia thing with where they are now. And maybe it'll go back to the same kind of situation. Maybe teams are going to have to sneak players out again. Because if you saw in the news that Russian goalkeeper Ivan Fedorov was supposed to go to the Philadelphia Flyers camp, he was detained, and I guess they said it was evading military service and was not allowed to come over. I know.
Wasn't that the fear with Kaprizov too?
Now Kaprizov is still in Russia.
Is he over there? I thought he was back here.
Yeah, he's over there.
Yeah, there were reports that he came back, and then they said no, he's still over there, but he's okay, they said. But I mean, I guess it's for how long, and if they let him come back. Now, guys like Artemi Panarin cannot go back to Russia because of statements they've made in the past, and if he goes back there, he's going to be in a lot of trouble. They probably won't let him leave again either. So I guess it's with how the war is going in Ukraine and everything, and in the stance. Maybe they're trying to keep their players more now. I guess he's going to probably, if he wants to play, going to have to play for CSKA in Moscow. He helped them win the Gagarin Cup. Right. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of want to get your thoughts on the state of Russian players today, because the Red Wings even drafted a Russian in Dmitry Bachelnikov this past draft. He's playing for the Scott St. Petersburg junior team.
Right.
So I'm hoping that, he was a high pick, 52 overall round 2. I'm hoping that there's no issues with players coming over, because back then it was kind of the NHL was still the best league in the planet, and people, they wanted to leave Russia to come. There's more opportunity, more money over here. And it's the same now. And it might go back to being harder to get them over.
Well, I think that's what we're facing right now. Listen, it feels to me like they're making up the rules as they go along over there right now. They want to keep Fedotov over there because he's a really good goaltender. And there is no transfer agreement right now. There's no transfer agreement between the KHL and the NHL. They need to players need to play out one contract in one league before they can, come and sign with the NHL. And, they want to keep him there. And they're using the military, evading the military as a reason.
Yep.
And I think, could they do that with Kaprizov? Probably they could. I think what we're going to find is fewer Russian-born players are going to go back there in the off season because there's a chance they might not come back here. This is not going to go on forever.
No.
Right.
And I think, the Wings are playing the long game. They drafted, spent a high draft pick on a Russian kid, and he's going to get over here sooner or later. And even if they have to sneak him out again, we might be back to something like that. And by the way, Jim Lights now works for the Dallas Stars. I don't know if they drafted any Russians or not, but I'm available to go pass messages along. I don't think we have this Iron Curtain thing going on again, but it's the rules that we were operating under from about 1992 or 3 until very recently don't apply anymore. I mean, the guy running that country is a bit of a wild card. You just never, and he fashions himself as a hockey guy.
Yeah, I've seen the videos of him very slowly skating up to a goaltender and then the goaltender diving out of the way so he can score it. He's a fantastic hockey.
If you're the goaltender, what do you do?
Yeah, I live to play another day.
I get out of the way.
No question. Listen, if you ever notice when every now and then we used to see Putin, mucking it up on the ice as a hockey player and on the evening news or something like that, you might see a little bit of him. But always when you see him around other players on the ice that he's playing with, if you look real quickly, Slava Fetisov is always there, like right next to the guy, right? They're like Fetisov is pretty well connected over there.
So maybe that'll be our in for getting our player out. And maybe that in Yzerman was he asked during his pre-draft press conference about drafting Russians, and he goes, well, maybe some other teams might have a changed stance on it because of what's going on. He said, but his thing was he was not going to change how he drafts people. And I said, well, you've got Fedorov over there still, and he's coaching, and you're still connected to him, and you've got Fetisov and Larionov, and you're still connected to them. So the team's still got some ins if they need ins to get their players out.
Sure, and Slava Kozlov is there coaching over there still. Yeah.
Yeah. So for the Stars, Maxim Mayorov, round 5, pick 47, a goaltender playing for Tagliati in Russia right now. So you may have to get on the phone with Jim Lights and see if he needs to get his player out.
Perfect.
So before we sign off tonight, Yzerman did make a bunch of moves, even as far as today. Mark Pysyk has been, he is out for 4 to 6 months with a Achilles tendon tear that had to be repaired. And they signed Haig to a contract. Now, I don't think that's a Pysyk replacement because Haig is a left defense and Pysyk's a right defense. So I'm not sure what they're going to do there. But I mean, Yzerman made more moves than I think anyone guessed he was going to. It looks like the team definitely could chase a wild card spot this season. I kind of want to get your thoughts on the upcoming season.
Yeah, I was astounded really by what he did. I thought we did a couple of signings, 6 or 7 surprised me. But it wasn't just the number; it was the quality of the people that he signed as well, guys. The center iceman, the second center iceman, Cop, pretty good player.
Yeah.
But the guy you were really going to like is David Perron.
Absolutely.
Oh my God. I was shocked that they signed this guy. All he does is score goals, and he plays a kind of with an edge.
Oh, he pisses you off.
Oh, he does. Yeah. I really, really like him. And, you look at the depth now that they have. I liked now I'm drawing blanks on all the names. The defenseman.
Ben Sherratt.
Sherratt. Another guy. Big, strong guy. I mean, him with Mo Seider.
Yeah.
The top pair. They just turn Mo loose. He'll just be able to, go up and down the ice and do what he needs to do. And the other end of the ice is well taken care of. Mm-hmm. And then you got 3 NHL pairs of defensemen now.
Yeah,
which we haven't had for years here.
It's crazy.
You know what? We have an NHL player at every position for the first time in 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and that happened in 3 seasons.
Datsuk left.
Pardon?
Yeah. Right around when Datsuk left is the last time we've
correct.
Probably that many players.
You go down all the way down to the bottom, the bottom fourth line, if you want to call it that. I'm not sure that Joe Veleno is going to crack the top 12, but I like, or frankly, I like if Pius Suter plays the third pair defenseman, Michael Rasmussen center in the fourth line with Adam Ernie and Oscar Sundqvist.
Yeah,
heavy. We got kind of a grind line act 2 with
grind line light.
Yeah, well, I don't know about light.
Yeah, those are some big boys.
About light. That's a big, strong, heavy line.
I mean, Ernie is your smallest guy at 6'1",
correct.
212. So that tells you everything you need right there.
When was the last time we had a legitimate third pair defense or third line defense? I mean, we've got if
2014.
I was gonna say if Edvinsson comes in and plays your second pair, you've got Olli Mata on your third pair, and he's a legitimate defenseman.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, it's good times coming up, I think.
No question, but I think we ought to really put the brakes on Edvinsson, guys. Because we saw what happened with Moritz Seider, and he surprised the heck out of me. I think I was at this time last year, let's not expect too much of Moritz Seider. I kept saying that, and he kept giving us more and more and more. Now people are going to expect the same thing of Edvinsson.
It's unfair.
Think he's going to need a little bit of time. Mm-hmm. Now they don't have to throw him in.
No,
give him a little time in Grand Rapids, guys. No. Let him get his legs over here. And they got 6 NHL defensemen. They got 7. They can play around a little bit, and let's see how those pairings go. If they need some help, let Edvinsson play a month or 2 or 3 in Grand Rapids, and then come to Detroit and see how he does. I wouldn't want to rush that guy.
Yeah, it's kind of what they did with Seider too. I mean, Seider played in Grand Rapids.
That was the path. Yeah, it was going to be that way.
And he may have still played more in Grand Rapids instead of going over to the SHL if the AHL season had been a sure thing at that point. He may have started in Grand Rapids and then come to Detroit later on in the season. I don't have any issues with Edvinsson playing in Grand Rapids. There are going to be some people online that will complain.
As there are with people happy in Grand Rapids.
Yeah, but our Grand Rapids friends will be very, very happy if Edvinsson plays over there this coming season.
Well, listen, remember the Red Wings used to be, by the time a player came to Detroit, he was overripe, right?
Yeah, that's the old, the trope, yes.
Yeah, but there's nothing wrong with that. If anything, we rush guys to Detroit to play when they weren't ready, like Zadina. I worry that he's not, I think he might be a ruined asset by this point. This is going to be a make or break for him. Same with Veleno. Yeah. They needed more time at the American League level to kind of get their legs. We expected way too much too soon from those guys, and I'm not sure they're ever going to give it to us now.
Well, we saw that with Rasmussen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rasmussen but Raz went back to at least Grand Rapids. Because he got in that ugly, like, back and forth between being just young enough, having to go back to the CHL or whatever league he was in. Canadian hockey,
but too good for it.
It wasn't doing him any good, so he had to stay in Detroit. But then he got the extra time in Grand Rapids. I think that helped balance him out. But
didn't he look like a different player the last 20 or 30 games?
Oh man.
Yes.
Let's hope we get some of that going forward. I think he's going to be fine. Remember too, he's a great big guy.
Yep.
And big guys, sometimes it takes them a little longer to get acclimated. He's still growing into that big body. He's added some weight and so on. And he had a lot to learn. He finally figured out. I'm going back to Keith Primo. It took Keith Primo a long time before he was ready to play in the NHL with that big, 6'5" body of his. Rasmussen too. I really think Rasmussen can be a really good third or fourth line center for this team now.
That's all I think. Once you get past the fact that he was a first round pick, like once you get past the fact that he's probably not going to live up to that first round pick,
top 10 pick,
kind of hope that he becomes an impact player, or at least, someone that can play in the NHL. And I think that's what he's becoming right now.
Well, heaven knows they need it. I mean, you look at their draft record in those years there when he was drafted in, they don't have a whole lot to show for it, do they?
No, Chalowski, another guy.
Yep, gone. Yeah, no, I think it's Rasmussen, and they even said at the end of last season, Rasmussen is forming his identity on this team and becoming an integral part to where if we're making up trade scenarios, Rasmussen's not really in any of our trade scenarios because he is the kind of bottom six player that you need on the team. He's going to become a wall. He has learned to skate much better. Yep. His balance has improved. He can park himself in front of the net and deflect shots. And he's shown even in juniors that he's got really good hands around the front of the net. And he just makes a goalie's life a lot harder. And that's what he's going to do in that bottom six. He's become, this year, he became a player. Like he's a player now.
Oh, I agree. I mean, he's the closest thing since
who, Homer?
Homer, yes. Yeah. Somebody who'll park in front of the net and bounce pucks in off his butt, for goals, and take the eyes away of the goaltender. The Wings have lacked that for how long?
Yeah, a long time Forever. Now.
I mean, that was their identity for all those years. That's more or less. You throw the puck in the net, it's sneaking in somehow.
Yep.
I was going to say probably since Franzen left. That'd probably be
Franzen was a guy. That's right. You're right about that. Yep.
Yeah. So playoffs this season, Keith?
Here's if it wasn't the Atlantic Division, I'd say maybe. Yeah. But listen, I think Boston's going to come back a little bit. They got real problems there now, and it's about time.
Thank God.
End of the cycle. But we got Florida. I still think is pretty darn good. The Lightning, Toronto. I think it's going to be. They're going to win a lot of games in the regular season. I don't know how they can win in the playoffs or not. Boston. Then if people keep talking about Ottawa getting better, I'm not a believer. We'll see if it happens. But Detroit should be able to compete with the bottom end of those four teams, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, easily. I think they at least chase a wild card spot.
I think they can. Honestly, I think they can. Let's take baby steps. Let's hope that they play meaningful games in early April.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Meaningful games. If they're in the hunt, then I see progress.
It'll give the fans a taste, and it's going to change the dynamic of LCA.
Yes.
Because we saw last year in some games how loud that place could get. It was
so loud.
And it's deafening. And you don't beat the Joe, but I think this year in some of the games that I went to, it was pretty damn close, if not louder. And it's impressive.
I mean, opening night was insane.
Oh, opening night was incredible last year.
Yeah.
But
I think it will be this year too. There's some serious excitement, and it's legitimate. And I tell you what, people have a lot of faith in the general manager, and rightly so. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to second guess the guy. I'm not going to second guess his choice for coach. I mean, Derek Lalonde is a guy that Steve Yzerman hired twice, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's. I'm all in as far as the coach is concerned too. Let's see what happens. But I like the looks of this hockey team. And I saw the transition at the Joe when the Wings went from a really bad team to a team making the playoffs for the 25 years in a row, and how that crowd got cranked up and had some fun. And I'm not sure that I ever heard a louder cheer than on March 26, 1997, by the way. Even I think that it was even louder than when they won the Stanley Cup in a few months later. That was pretty wild.
Well, we are about to get back to it. I mean, it's your cycle all over again. It's going to go from being the worst back to the best in a matter of a few seasons. But before we sign off, where can people find you, and where's the best place to get the book?
Well, at Keith Gave on Twitter, I guess is and keithgave.com. I'm redesigning the website right now, but the book is everywhere. Amazon bookstores, wherever you get your books, should be able to find the Russian Five and Vlad the Impaler. And in October, I have a third book out called A Miracle of Their Own. about the rivalry between Canada and Team USA women's ice hockey.
Oh, wow.
One of the best rivalries in all of professional sports.
You know what, guys? I covered a big, long chunk of the Detroit, Colorado Avalanche rivalry.
Yeah.
And these women, when they get after one another, it's as good or better than that. I'm telling you, it's fun. And it made for a really interesting book.
That's all. I can't wait for that. That's going to be great.
Well, Ryan, final thoughts?
No, I just want to say thank you for coming on. I mean, everything that you've done in terms of with the Russian Five, Vlad the Impaler, I've just started Vlad, and the first several chapters are fantastic. It's nice knowing the voices of an Iserman or Shanahan, so I can actually make it sound like that in my head as I'm reading through it. But just what you're doing with all this, everything for Vladdy, and really also for the fans, like getting them that inside view, it's fantastic. And the fact that you spent time with us is great. Pete says hello, by the way. I texted him a little bit ago.
Oh, thanks. I was hi. Yeah.
So I told him I'd say hello for you. But no, just appreciate it. And for me, Artie Ryan 33. Tyler?
Yeah, so my final thoughts are, Keith, always appreciate you coming on, and definitely a lot of insight there and some stuff that I've never heard for sure. But and then I guess my final thoughts are just, I'm just happy to be able to look forward to a hockey season. Not that I don't look forward to hockey season usually, but this kind of gets me back to 2015, 16, and before that, where we're expecting a really good hockey team and a team that was going to play important games, and I think that's what we're going to get. And you can follow me on Twitter at SealDog91.
I got one thing to tell you. I got one thing to say to you, Tyler.
Sure.
Go green.
Oh, no.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I am also going to parrot everyone. And again, thank you, Keith, for coming on. We waited too long to get you on. We should have done it way earlier. But we are going to be giving away copies of the book. So Keith was kind enough to send us signed copies of the book. So we're going to do little prize packs. I think what I want to do is kind of like an entry system. We'll do donations to the Vladimir Konstantinov Trust to get entries to win books. And I think that's a good way to do it. We always get really good responses with our giveaways. And the Detroit Red Wings, especially Twitter fan base, are one of the most charitable fan bases I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I mean, they've, as a group, donated tens of thousands of dollars to the Jamie Daniels Foundation.
Right.
They're always down for donations to good causes. And I mean, there's not much of a better cause than this. So we will be doing stuff there. Like I said, on our website, that Beat Them shirt is still up there, and 100% of the proceeds from that are going to go to Vladdy. You can find me online at Bringing the Wing. You can find the Grindline podcast online at Grindline Pod. We like to give a shout out to Vintage Detroit, which is the best place to get your Detroit jerseys. As close to authentic, on ice authentic as you're going to find, and the people are amazing to work with. We also like to give a shout out to Howie's Hockey Tape, where if you use the promo code Grindline, you get 10% off your order. If you use that same promo code at Bring Hockey Back, you get 12% off your order. We're also going to be doing another thing with Bring Hockey Back, where we co-designed a shirt, and money from those sales will go to the Ted Lindsay Foundation to support autism. But that is going to do it for us tonight. So for Ryan and Tyler, again, thank you, Keith. You stay classy, Hockey Town.